takes guts to be out here and try to perform in front of all the players that are, or the students and family and just community that are here. It takes guts to be out here to do that. Like we talked about earlier, life's not a highlight reel. You learn from your mistakes. That's how you get better. Tell them you love them. Tell them you're proud of them.
You got to do the honors for this one.
All
you
right,
got a history here.
All right. We're on site at Copper Hills High School with Brian Allfrey, who just completed his first year as head coach of the Grizzlies, but he is far from anything that you would consider a first-time coach. He's been around it as long as anyone I know in the state, and we're excited to chat with him today and ask him some tough questions.
I think he just called you old.
I just call him coach.
I believe he did call me old, but
I don't think so.
I think it's probably deserved. I mean, I look at him and I think of him as a 14, 15-year-old kid, and now I look at him as a guy who's losing his hair, and so that makes me feel old when that happens.
It's all true.
Take us through this past year. What are some successes from your first year as the head coach here at Copper Hills?
Yeah, I think our goal was to get better than we were the year before. And, we finished 12-12, which is better. We're happy with that, but we're certainly not satisfied. We spent most of the year in the top 8 in the RPI, which was a goal of ours to make sure that we were in the top 8. And unfortunately, the last game of the season, we dropped to 10, which hurts us. Of those 12 losses, 5 or 6 of them are within, 5 points. We play Harriman 3 times throughout the season. They're number 1 all year long, and we're right there with them, with chances to win in all 3 games that we played. So we were kind of right there knocking on the door. I think we had an opportunity to maybe be, 15-9, 16-8 rather than 12-12. But I think overall, we have to be happy with the progress that we made as a program.
Yeah, that's exciting. And as Eric mentioned, you've been coaching a long time. This was your first year as the head coach here. What changes? And we'd interviewed Jeff Judkins, who was an assistant at the U and then for BYU, and he said that 18-inch shift to the left is a big deal. So what was that like going from assistant to the head coach?
Well, he's right. I mean, it's a big shift, and I noticed it. There's funny moments throughout the season where you notice it, right? So you're at the end of a game. There's 2 minutes left, and you're up 10, 15 points, and your JV coach, your sophomore coach, the rest of your staff is like, "Hey, get the JV kids in."
Yeah.
That's really easy to say when you're the JV coach.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to do when you're the varsity coach going, do we have this in the bag? Can I bring these kids out? Can I make that change?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just one kind of funny thing that you notice. And my staff kind of laughed at me because, I was here for years with Coach Watkins and Coach Blanchard. And, I was always like, okay, game's over. We're good. Like, let's get these guys in. Let's get them the experience. Let's make sure everybody letters. Like, that's an important thing for the experience that the kids have. Let's make sure we get them in here. It is much harder to do when you're the head guy. But there are lots of little things I think that are harder to do. Everything kind of rests on your shoulders, right? Yeah. I mean, you have to delegate to make sure everything gets done. But knowing that you're the final say just adds some pressure and some weight.
Yeah, yeah. What about interactions with parents as an example, right? Because it seems like the assistant, you can kind of be the good guy in a lot of situations, and now the head coach is kind of the bad guy in those situations.
And I did a lot of parent communication for Coach Watkins.
Okay.
So I probably was always the bad guy. It's probably a role I'm good at. And I mean, we kind of say that tongue in cheek because I don't think anyone has to be the bad guy. I think that one of the keys is just make sure that you're direct and honest with people. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's easy and sometimes that's hard, but it's usually, still the easier way to do it, to be direct with parents and players and whatever, about whether it's playing time, whether it's about expectations, grades, interactions with referees. I mean, whatever. It's just easier to be direct and do that. So it's a little bit of an adjustment because yes, it's I'm the final say, like I mentioned before, but it's a role that I had. I had a pretty big role in that previous.
Yeah. You've got a great team, but you also have a standout player in Isaiah Reiser, who we've talked to here. What is it like coaching a talent like that?
Well, yeah, I mean, talent is the right word. Isaiah is going to graduate here probably the all-time leader in points, in steals, and assists, which is almost unheard of, right? And he's been starting since he was a freshman. So, at times he's a joy to coach, and at times it's difficult, and not that he's difficult, but it's difficult to make sure that is everyone else doing what they need to do, or is he doing what he needs to do, right? So I think there's a tendency sometimes with our players to who they know Isaiah is great, that there's 5 seconds left in a shot clock and nothing's going right, and there's a tendency sometimes just to watch and go, save us, Isaiah, save us. And a lot of times he does. Sometimes he can't. I mean, he's still 5'11", right? I mean, he's not Superman. No one is. There's also a belief. Isaiah has a belief that he can make any play, and that's great, and it works out most of the time. But there are also times where we have to work with him on, okay, but you drew 2 guys, you drew 3 guys. Let's make that easy pass, and you've got to trust your teammate to make that shot. And I think that that's something that throughout the season he got a lot better at.
Yeah.
And over the summer has shown, really grown at, hey, I'm gonna make that pass. I'm gonna trust my teammate to make that shot.
I'm just going to ask my question in the way of talk to us about coaches that you've coached with, what you've learned from them, because it hasn't always been that Coach Allfrey has assisted even. As he very well knows, we have a championship together, which was awesome. And he was the head man. But some names that I've jotted down here, Coach Scott Briggs, obviously at West Jordan, Harriman for a short time, Mountain Ridge, Coach Blanchard here in both Harriman, and Coach Watkins. What have you learned from some of those guys, and what have you tried to implement?
I think first off, I'm lucky to be able to call all 3 of those guys friends, which is the best part of this whole thing. Coach Briggs is a legend. I was kind of shocked to see that he was stepping down from coaching. But he's been so great for so long. What the thing I think about when I think about Scott Briggs is just consistency, right? It's just day after day after day of demanding excellence and demanding the most from his teams. Whether they were supremely talented, he's had years where they were supremely talented, he's had years where they're not supremely talented, but it didn't matter, right? They were going to battle you, they were going to play hard, and they were going to do what they did. Not a lot of gimmicks. We're going to do what we do. We're going to do it to the best of our ability, and you have to stop it. That's definitely something that I kind of keep in the back of my mind. He's a legend. He really is, and did a tremendous job. Coach Blanchard, he and I were together on Coach Briggs' staff for a while at West Jordan. And when he got the job here, asked me to come join him. And he, again, a little bit, probably more of a fiery disposition than Coach Briggs. But I don't know that there's anyone who wants to win more than Andrew Blanchard, And so I think it was a great pair. Really enjoyed working with him, and just learned a whole lot of stuff about dealing with parents, dealing with players, thinking outside the box, scouting. And Coach Watkins was here. I mean, we were here together for a long time. All 3 of us were here together. And then when Coach Blanchard left, Coach Watkins got the job, and I became his number 1 assistant. And so again, just continue to learn from John. John's a tireless worker. X's and O's, one of the best coaches I've ever seen when it comes to X's and O's. And then breaking down film. I mean, just amazing at picking out little things to show his players, to give them any advantage that you can get, right? And so I've tried to take a little bit from all of them, and then things that I've learned along the way and things that have worked for me, and you try to kind of put it all together and do the best you can to help these young men be successful.
What would you describe? Coaches have styles, right? So you have some coaches that are more offensive coaches, more defensive coaches, more X's and O's, more free, more restricted. What kind of a coach would you kind of put yourself in, if that makes sense? And I know you have to do all of those. I'm not saying you ignore defense,
right.
But what type of coaching philosophy do you generally have?
I think generally I would love to have our players play free. Mm-hmm. If we could play and be successful and I didn't have to call a single set play the whole game, I would be really, really happy. Yeah. Because, basketball is more pure that way. But not everyone can do that, right? And as much as we had times last year where maybe I tried to do that too much, where I probably should have called a few more set plays. Where I think it gets hard in varsity basketball today is that coaches do a great job, especially you get in region. Mm-hmm. You get in region, everybody knows our sets. So I call a play, everybody knows what's coming. I mean, the other opposing team student section probably knows what's coming. So it's in those moments, which is why we try to focus on, okay, look, we're gonna teach you actions. We're gonna teach you how to make reads, how to make plays rather than run plays. So, I mean, our philosophy would really be that, we want to be able to make plays. We want to be able to take what the defense gives us. Like I said, you can't do that every time down the floor, but that's probably the best way to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's great. How do you cultivate that in your team of that freedom to make the best play while also working within the confines of you can't just go do whatever you want, right? So really those coachable moments of we could find a better shot or we could work a little harder on defense.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of time in practice and a lot of time watching film to say, okay, look, this one was a good shot, but we could have got a great shot. Mm-hmm. And then making sure that what we're doing when we're making those reads is still within the framework of our offense, right? So spacing really is probably one of the most important things. So we can't just have, we can't have Isaiah come down and just decide to do whatever he wants and there's a guy standing next to him and there's someone else under the rim. Yeah. Everyone still has to do their job for him to be able to make a play or for anyone to be able to make a play. So, yeah, it's a lot of time in practice. It's a lot about, basketball IQ is not the right word. It's more of, it's more just understanding basketball concepts, right? So there's a lot of things that happen, right, where if I do this, my defender has to make a decision. So I have two choices, and then my defender has to make that choice. It's trying to teach those kids those types of situations where, okay, if I cut right here, what's the consequence of that? Mm-hmm. If I set a screen, what happens? What's my man going to do? Things like that we try to work on, and where we teach them just simple things like, you come down on a fast break, you've got a shooter in the corner. If you dribble really hard at that shooter, sometimes that defender can't help himself but to guard you, and then you're either going to get an open three or you're going to get a back cut. Just little situations that we try to teach where we give them a little bit of a clue on, you can dictate what that defense is going to do.
Yeah.
Coach Allfrey might be one of the best players that we've had on the podcast in his own right. Played at Snow College. How has basketball changed from the time you played in high school basketball and Snow to what you now coach here in high school?
Well, I mean, I'm old enough that when I played, it might as well been Coach Naismith coaching.
Were they pulling down the peach basket?
Yeah, we had to stop it and get the ladder out and get the ball out every time, so we couldn't play nearly as fast. But the three-point line really has changed everything. And then everything, as much as I dislike this, whatever happens in the NBA seems to trickle down a little bit, right? So Steph Curry has come in, and you guys both have young kids, so I'm sure the first thing they want to do is be able to shoot threes. Mm-hmm. I think ultimately Steph Curry's probably hurt the development of young basketball players, not intentionally, because they want to do what he does without understanding what it took for him to be able to do that and what it takes for him continuously now to do that. I mean, he never walks in a gym and just shoots from 35 feet. Right, he learned how to shoot correctly. So now we have young kids that come in and do that. But I don't want to get off on that tangent. But I think that the three-point line, analytics, I mean, everyone's talking, it's a layup or an open three. Layup or an open three. Sometimes the mid-range game kind of gets lost. And then look at how many teams post players up anymore. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my good friends and one of my teammates is the head coach at UVU. They're still posting people up, but I don't think anyone in their league is using a post-up game, right? So kids don't know how to post up. They don't know how to defend the post, where before, I mean, it was you created mismatches by throwing the ball in the post. Mm-hmm. Now you create mismatches by dribble drive to kick out for threes.
Yeah. It's the three-point line, to your point. I was a three-point shooter, but it wasn't the culture that we have now where it's like, we're just jacking up a bunch of threes. And I'm helping coach for another school here, and we will have games where it's like, hey, our first 8 shots were threes. We've got to do better than that. But the three-point line, to your point, is just it's a completely different philosophy, and to coach for that and around kids who want to do that has to be a little bit challenging.
Right. Well, if you go 4 for 8 in your first 8 shots, you're fine. But if you go 0 for 8, now you're down 12 probably, and you're in a hole, and you're trying to convince those kids that we need to get a layup, we need to get a stop, we need to get something easy.
Yeah. We were talking with, again, Jeff Judkins, and he mentioned that losing as a coach is so much harder than as a player. Do you feel that as well? Like, it feels like with coaching, you don't have as much control over what's going on, whereas a player, you could go rough someone up or do something.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as a player, you have a little bit more control where, I can try to get that loose ball that we need, or I can make a shot. With coaching, and it's taken me a long time to kind of maybe become at ease with some of that, where it's just like, okay, I will prepare them the best I can. It's my job to put them in situations throughout the game where they can be successful, but I can't make shots for anyone.
Yeah.
I can't complete passes. I just have to keep, trying to put them in the right situation. If it doesn't work out, then it's on to the next play, and how do I put them in a situation where we can score, or we can get a stop, or whatever we need to do to get a win.
What do, going to Copper Hills High School basketball program now, what do tryouts look like? So what should an 8th grader going into the 9th grade be prepared for when tryouts come around?
I'm going to maybe rephrase this, and we'll come back if I don't answer this the way you want. I think if you're a young kid coming to our tryouts, coming to any tryouts, the most important thing that you can do is to come in here and just play hard. Come in here and fly around. Mm-hmm. Our culture is kind of these kids come in and think, I've got to make shots, or I've got to do all this. But I can't put 10 or 12 scorers on a team, right? Guys have to have roles. So when kids come in and they just rebound the ball like crazy, they're going to get noticed for being able to rebound the ball. If they communicate and they're loud and their energy rubs off on other people, that's going to get them noticed. They're going to stand out really quickly. Especially we're in an Instagram generation, right? Where kids, they don't know how to communicate without a device in their hands. So when you get a young man who comes in who's vocal, who's a leader, who's excited, that really stands out, and it makes myself and all of our coaches say, okay, we need to watch this. We need to watch this kid, because sometimes teams just need an energy guy. Mm-hmm. We've taken kids over the years that maybe were not the best players, but they gave energy to their team. So I think that's important. Obviously scoring, but you're going to find ways to score, but playing hard, competing. Kids who want to win. That's one of the things that I think has hurt basketball in general, is that they play so much that there's just another game. Like, we lost. Well, we got another game tomorrow. We got 2 more games on Saturday or whatever. And so, competition is taking a hit. Yeah, so when kids who come in and they compete, that really stands out, because I want kids who can compete. We can teach you to be a better basketball player. Yeah. It's really hard to teach a kid who is not competitive at all to be competitive. Yeah. Doesn't work out very well.
Yeah, your competitiveness, and to your point, the effort too, of those are things that you just can't really coach, right?
No, you have it or you don't, right? So you're either willing to run through a brick wall to win, to go get every rebound, or you're not.
And you have some great sons who are also great basketball players. So as a parent who has a young kid now, what can we do to develop that competitiveness and that toughness and that effort as a 10, 11-year-old as they're coming up, so that they can have that once they're grown up a little bit?
Do we just have the wrong genes, or are our kids not going to be successful because we're not like tall and dunk and
I don't think you have to be tall, and I don't think you have to dunk. I think that you have to let boys be boys a little bit. You have to let them compete. My boys are 2 years apart, and there were times growing up where they threw some hands at each other. And we'd separate it. Everything in the world is a competition. I think as parents, we don't want to compete. Everyone should get a trophy. Everyone should get a chance. But once you grow up and get out of school and go to the real world, that's not how it works anymore. The rest of the world, everything is competition. Yeah. So I think it's just fostering that to compete. If you have a bad game, great. It doesn't matter. You're going to play another one. And when you play another one, play harder. Yeah. Keep trying. And you want to win.
Okay, I want to ask, having completed your first full year being the new head coach here, what advice would you give to somebody who is just starting their first year as a head coach? How was your year?
Overall, I think I had a really great year. One of the things that I had to learn, and it's a personality flaw of mine, is to delegate. And so going into year 2, I've got to get better at delegating things, right? I have a great staff. We have a great booster club. I have to let things go. Like I said, it's a personality flaw of my own to where, nope, I'm going to take care of it. I want it done my way. And that works. But when you're kind of in charge of everything, you can't do that, right? Because you're gonna miss the details. And so, number one, I think, is make sure you get the right people around you, and then let them do their job.
Is there something that comes to your mind right now that you're like, I need to delegate this thing next year better than I did this year?
Booster club.
Okay.
Booster club. But one of the things that my staff and I have talked about is almost going to a football type model where we're going to have an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. So there'll be an assistant who your job is primarily to look at how we're doing on offense and create suggestions and things like that, and someone who's focused on the defense. And obviously they're all looking at everything, right? I want to hear all the suggestions they have, but trying to kind of narrow it down and giving them more of a focus to where, okay, I need a play call. I've got an idea in my head, but I want to hear from one of my coaches who knows the playbook as well or better than I do.
How do you go about picking a staff like that with your assistants and trainers? It's a huge time commitment. So how do you find people that are willing to do it and then are also the type of individual that would help the program?
Well, that's the hard part, is are they willing to do it, right? I mean, my staff, they make somewhere between $3,000 and $4,000 a year. They get a stipend during the season, but that doesn't cover anything that we do in the summer or anything else, right? So, and there are other ways for them to make money as we go, but they're not in it for the money. They're involved. They want to help these kids become better players and better young men, which ultimately is the ultimate goal, right? But so I was fortunate. Most of the staff that was here when Coach Watkins left were coaches that I had helped recruit, right? So our JV coach had played for me at West Jordan, had coached with Coach Blanchard and Coach Watkins, so he decided to stay. My sophomore coach is the athletic director at Ascent Academy, which is a quarter mile away. We brought Preston Sanchez back as an assistant last year, who's our all-time leading scorer, which I think has been great for the players, especially Isaiah. Someone to come back who's been through the battles, someone who played varsity basketball as a freshman, who played in a state championship game. And this closer to their age. The rest of us are all older, so having somebody that's their age, it's difficult. I mean, to find somebody who has the time, who can be here at 3:00 on a Tuesday or a Wednesday during the season, and at times on certain days we're starting practice at 1:30. Who can be here at 1:30 and know basketball and be a good communicator, be good with kids? I mean, it's a challenge to find the right people.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of people who would love to volunteer.
Yeah.
But that, they're not necessarily the right people that you want.
I want to ask how you juggle work and coaching, because for as long as I've known you, you've done that, and I think that's so impressive.
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure I do a very good job of it, but this is my passion, right? I mean, I have a really great job. I'm the executive director of the Utah Press Association, and we manage a couple of states. Then the Press Association is the Association of Newspapers. And, it's a great job. It's a great job. And it allows me to do something like this that I love. And so, it's a lot of late nights. It's a lot of working weekends to make sure that I keep my regular job done so that I can do, what I love here.
We touched on this a little bit earlier, the Instagram era. How do you deal with the changes in that of the players? And we had asked Isaiah this a little bit too, of all of the opinions that are coming into your program. And you as the head coach are kind of at the bottom of this tornado of opinions that are coming in, of your own. Your family might be involved with your sons giving you their thoughts. You've got the players that are the starters. You've got the players that think they should be the starters, parents, administration. All of these people are telling you what you should do, down to the uniform design and the colors and everything else. How do you filter through all of these voices to, one, know and feel that you're confident in the direction you're taking the team, but also help the kids through the same challenges that they have with that? Yeah,
I think, the most important people that we want to listen to when that happens is our is our players, making sure that we're taking care of them. Like, are we meeting their needs? Is there something going on that they need help with? But a lot of it, I think, just comes down to having the confidence of, look, everyone's going to have their opinion, and honestly, it doesn't matter, right? Dave Chappelle said it best. He said, "Twitter's not a real place," and we talk about that in practice all the time. We change it, like, social media is not a real place. It doesn't matter. We had a situation just a couple of weeks ago. We were playing at a tournament at UVU, and a kid from another school makes a move on Isaiah, and I think Isaiah falls down or whatever, and the kid takes the clip and he posts it. It says something about, like, "Isaiah, did I lose you?" So he makes his move, he gets past Isaiah, and the clip ends. Well, the clip ended because the kid missed a shot. I think he airballed the shot. I mean, it was terrible, right? And so I was talking to Isaiah about it, and I'm like, "Are you going to respond?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Good." And I was really happy because it's like, you don't need to respond. It doesn't matter. No one cares what this person thinks. No one cares what these random people on the internet think. We shouldn't listen to that. We shouldn't be dictated by someone who has a voice but won't actually put their name to it or anything like that, right? Yeah. So to me, it's just social media is ruining our whole world because things can be said without any names to it. There's an anonymity to it. But also, I mean, comparison is the thief of joy. Like, most of the stuff you see on social media is not real. People's lives aren't as great as they want to make them out to be. So I don't know if they're doing that to make themselves feel better, but to be able to just go and say, look, none of that matters. It's noise. It's nonsense, and not to focus on that. We talk about that a lot. I'm not a big social media guy, so it doesn't really matter much to me. I think that you have to have this. My decision-making process really is what is best for our team and our players. Mm-hmm. If it's the right thing for our team and our players, then that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. I love how you say that. Again, our kids are coming up. We're coming up in this social media age, and my kid watches highlight videos all day, right? And life isn't highlights. It's you miss the lowlights, essentially, of that, right? And so that's the perfectionism that we're trying to battle with my son in particular is, well, the highlights I watch, they make every shot, but they also miss a lot of shots before that too. So how do we balance that mentally of...
Right, and I blame the NBA, right? Yeah. Their marketing department. Kids don't watch full NBA games at all. They watch highlights on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or wherever they're at. They watch highlights, and that's what they know. And that's unfortunate because, like you said, life is not a highlight. Yeah. Every shot you miss is a learning experience. Every game you lose is a learning experience. And if you really want to break down what my job is here, my job is to win basketball games. And Eric, I'm as competitive as they come. I hate losing. But ultimately what we're trying to do is raise young men to be able to be men, right? To overcome adversity. And that's part of the problem. One of the reasons we struggle overcoming adversity is they never see adversity in their lives for a lot of reasons. Yeah. Whether that's, the helicopter parent that removes all obstacles for them, or if it's just simply, well, I've never seen Steph Curry miss 10 shots. I've never seen him have a bad game. Because that gets scrubbed and that doesn't get shown.
Yeah. Yeah, that's tough to balance as a coach, as a parent, as a player. That's a lot to deal with.
We had a fun show where we interviewed a longstanding referee official, and want to ask you how you approach officials and the dynamic of that part of the game.
Well, officials are a really important part of our game, and without them, we don't have a game. And so, the goal, I'm certainly not perfect, but the goal is to not have an antagonistic relationship with officials. I don't think it helps. I don't think that complaining every time they pass you on every play up and down the floor, if you're complaining about a call, eventually they just stop listening to you, right? They just tune you out like they tune out the moron that's 10 rows up that's, calling for a travel every time, but he's wrong about what the rule actually is. So, I'm trying to be more conversational, trying to have a little fun. We'll have some jokes. We'll go through, we'll talk about things, so that when I actually do have a complaint or something that I want them to look at, they're going to take me more seriously because I'm not just upset for no reason. right? I mean, referees aren't perfect, but neither are coaches, neither are players, neither's the guy running the clock. The person selling the popcorn and candy in the corner isn't perfect either. So the better or the more that we all realize that everyone's doing the best they can and that they're human beings and we need to treat them like human beings, I think we have a better game and a better relationship.
Yeah, we had a great interview with one of the referees here locally, and he brought up the point too, like as a player, if I miss a shot, I know I missed the shot, and to have somebody tell me that I then missed the shot doesn't necessarily help what's going on there, right? So they also know sometimes when something may not have been what they wanted, but yelling at them about it isn't going to help that situation.
No, it doesn't help at all. They know if they miss one, right? And a lot of times it's the line I like to use is, absolutely, we fouled right there. I feel like we're getting the same contact. Will you look for that? Mm-hmm. The only thing I really want from officials is to call it the same on both ends, so that the contact level is the same. Whether it doesn't matter if you're going to call it tight or if you're going to let them play. Yeah. As long as it's the same on both ends. And sometimes that's hard because it's not one official, right? You've got three rotating around, and invariably one's going to call it tighter than the other two. And so depending on where they are in their rotation, sometimes that can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But I think, again, that's just something to try to talk to them about.
I don't have it verbatim, but there was a question from another coach in the region of your coaching style in the past was a little bit louder and more boisterous. And he says recently you've gotten more calm or quieter. Is that a conscious decision, or what's kind of prompted?
Yeah, I think that's a conscious decision. I think that as an assistant, everyone on a staff has a role. Mm-hmm. And, my role in the past has to be the guy that needs to yell when we need to yell, or to be the guy who the players come out and tell them the truth, or to challenge them when they need to be challenged. I think as a head coach, your team's going to follow your lead. So if I'm pacing up and down the sideline over here and I'm doing nothing but yelling at the official on every single call, that's what my team's focused on. If I'm upset about something, my team's not focused. My job, I think, is to be more focused, to make sure, because sometimes all they need is for you to be calm so that they can be calm.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Yeah, I like
right.
that.
And I'll give you an example. We were playing Riverton here, second half of region, and we were down the whole game. And I don't think anyone expected us to be down the whole game. We played at Riverton, and it went our way, and it went our way.
Close.
It went our way, and very well. But that's how it goes some nights. Like some nights things just go your way, and other nights it doesn't. And for that night, that whole game, I think one of my focus was, okay, just stay calm. We just need to get a basket, and we need to get a stop, and then we need to do it again. And it doesn't work like that. Like you don't just get a stop every time down, and you don't get a score every time down. The game is a little bit of a roller coaster. But it's my job to make sure that I stay calm so that we can keep those kids calm and focus on what they need to do. So that, we came back in the game, we have the ball, we have a chance to win, and Boston Lamborn hits a big-time three. Where, again, we put Isaiah in a situation where you're either going to have to double Isaiah or he's going to score. And when they doubled Isaiah, we threw it to Boston, and Boston hits the three. And I think a lot of that just comes down to making sure that I'm not caught up in the madness of what's going on, but I'm focused on that task at hand.
And if I remember right, there was some madness in that game of like a breakaway and flagrant fouls and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was an emotionally charged moment, not just because of the score, but because of things going on in the game. So that's a great point.
Well, I had the referee come tell me during that game, he's like, you got to get control of your assistant coach. And I had no idea until after the game what he was even talking about. I had no idea what was going on because I was just kind of focused on, I think something happened during a timeout, and I was in the huddle focusing on the boys, like, okay, here's what we have to do. Yeah. Like it's the next play mentality.
I want to jump into youth development a little bit because from the time I heard that you had been named the new head coach here at Copper Hills, I was really excited about it and knew that you would do an amazing job. And I'll probably misspeak and call it the wrong thing, but I know that you have almost your own Bantam Grizzlies league that you've developed for youth development. Do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Sure. So this started, I don't know, almost 15 years ago, I think now with Coach Blanchard. When he got the job here, we all came in and our focus was making sure that we started to develop our talent and we kept them here. right? In the past, there were good players in our boundaries that always seemed to find their way to other schools by the time they got to high school. And so we started a Bantam program. We were one of the early adopters of Bantam in the Salt Lake Valley. It was already big in Utah County, and he had been at Mountain View, right? So he was aware of it. So we started it here, and the idea was just to get those younger kids playing in our gym, wearing Copper Hills Grizzly gear to be excited about being a Grizzly. And then it evolved after we did that for a couple of years, and then we started running our own Bantam League. And the biggest reason it's a fundraiser. So we ran that for several years. We didn't run it last year just because I ran out of time. But it's a good fundraiser, right? I mean, we run a league, we hire the referees, and all the profit that the league made just stayed in our program, which was the biggest reason to do it for the high school program. But again, we're keeping our kids in our gym. Our youth parents are happy because they're not driving to
Cypress,
wherever every Saturday, right? Because there's some of those leagues that you play in where you're all over the place, and you might have 2 games and you're at Juan Diego at 10 and you're at Orem High School at 3. And, for us, it was, well, let's keep all of our kids here. Let's have our parents play here. Again, they're wearing our gear, they're playing in our gym. And then the program makes money on top of it. Like that's a great thing.
We had talked about your staff here for the high school, but also going into the Bantam side of things. Do you have much control or communication with the parent coaches of the littles at that point?
So yes, and we've fluctuated over the years on how many teams we have. We've had 2-3 teams in an age group. We've gone to where we're just going to have 1 team in an age group. It's really hard to tell. And like, let's just take 4th grade for example. Like, if you only have 1 4th grade team, you're probably cutting a kid who's going to be 6-7, right? That just hasn't grown, and you're keeping a kid who's just matured faster than everybody else, who's going to be 5-6 when they're a senior. So it's this difficult balance of how many teams do you keep, and it usually comes down to how much gym time do we have and how many parent coaches do we have. So we've done it different ways throughout the years. We've had our high school coaches all have a team. We've had our freshman and sophomore coaches take like our 7th and 8th grade teams and have them coach. And that usually works out better, but then the danger is you burn those coaches out because they're here practicing late with their sophomore and freshman, and then they're staying or they're going home and eating dinner and coming back and doing a Bantam practice. I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, we've had some volunteers that are fantastic. We've had some that are not. I think we're actually looking right now is how do we engage some former players? How do we get some players who have been here in the past and kind of know what it takes to be a Grizzly and what it's like to be successful? Get those kids when they're 24, 25 to 30. We're trying to get more of them involved to help with that.
You bring up a good point of that time commitment. What does that look like, the realities of coaching on your family? Like we talked about your job, but also your family, your spouse, your kids, of the time that you put into this.
So I'm really lucky. My wife is a saint. But I've been coaching pretty much since we got married. I started coaching right after we got married. I got done playing basketball, got married, started coaching right after. And so it's just been a part of our marriage. So it's just something that she's used to. As my boys got older, so my oldest, Trevin, we started playing him in junior jazz when he was 3. But he was big, right? So at 3, he was bigger than most of the 5-year-olds he was playing against. Same with my son, Jackson, who's 2 years younger than him. They both just started, and then they played together. And I coached them, all the way through their high school career. So it's just been something that our family does. And so both my boys are gone and in college now, and they watch games on the stream when they can and things like that. But my wife's very supportive. My daughter was the drill team president here, and if you look around, there's 7 or 8 or however many state championship banners that our drill team has. Drill team's an important thing at this school. It's not at every school, but it is at this school. So, our family's pretty committed to and involved in Copper Hills, and luckily, we're all invested in the same thing.
I want to ask about the development of your boys, and drill team is a huge deal. I know I have daughters too, but I don't know the right questions to ask. So I want to ask about Trevin and Jackson. You being a college basketball player, how do you train them to be awesome at basketball and to find the love for basketball? Because both of them, having played college basketball, clearly means they're really, really good players.
I don't think you can make them love something, right? So I think that I was fortunate that they both love basketball, which was really good for me. You know, the advice I'd give to any young parent, and the same thing I'm going to tell my boys because they're going to have kids of their own here in a few years, is that whatever your kids are passionate about, support them. Whether it's what you're passionate about or not, whatever they're passionate about, I think that it's important for kids to have a passion and to have something that they're chasing, right? Goals that they want to achieve and just doing things that they're passionate about. Again, I was lucky. My boys were really passionate. They wanted to play, and I'm sure I did all of it wrong. I'm probably lucky that you know they still love me and talk to me because, I mean, I held them to a standard that is higher than I held everyone else. But I could see what their potential was. I'm sure I didn't always do that the right way.
Let's take that to the players on your teams now, and that parent-player dynamic of there are a lot of things out there now of like the most feared conversation for the players is that ride home from a game where the dad is laying into them. And so now you've got your players and your parents. What advice would you give to them of after what has happened here on this floor has happened, what's the best way to go about that to help them be the best player they can be in high school?
Give them a hug, buy them some ice cream. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to them about what went wrong. And I try to, on a Friday night, we lose a game. I don't think me losing my mind in that locker room helps anybody because we all lost. And we're all walking out of that locker room with a loss. I think the best thing we can do is talk about what went right. We might talk a little bit just in general. Hey, we didn't do this well enough. We didn't do this well enough. We got to get better with this. But when we're really going to have that conversation is when we come back in Saturday morning and we turn the film back on. And now we can watch the film. We can look at what happened and break it down and say, okay, where was the mistake made? And sometimes it's not the mistake that we thought happened in the game is not really what happened. Something else happened that we didn't see. So that's where a lot of the learning takes place. But we're going to have those conversations, right? We're going to talk to those kids about, okay, we got to do this better. We missed this, or this was great. I don't know that parents on their way home going, hey, you didn't shoot well. The kids know they didn't shoot well. Mm-hmm. You didn't do this well. They already know. They know. Tell them you're proud of them. It takes guts to be out here and try to perform in front of all the players that are, or the students and family and just community that are here. It takes guts to be out here to do that. And it's not always, like we talked about earlier, life's not a highlight reel. Mm-hmm. You learn from your mistakes. That's how you get better. So, just tell them you love them, tell them you're proud of them.
Yeah, plenty of distractions in the game, right? The band, the cheerleaders, the student sections. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah.
What does your practice look like? What is practice time in high school on the varsity level? How do you use that time efficiently?
That's the question. It feels like there's so much that we need to work on.
It's overwhelming because again, I was going to coach a freshman team. Things got in the way of that, but I was like, where do I even start? There's so much to talk about.
Right.
How do you chip away at that?
Well, I mean, it seems like it gets crazier and crazier. I mean, within 10 days of tryouts starting, you can play your first game now, right? So, I mean, now we're playing before Thanksgiving when we used to play after. And there's so many things you got to do. You got to have a couple of days with the tryouts. I mean, I know there are some schools they do a morning and they do an afternoon and they're done. And maybe that works. Maybe it works for the older kids where you have a better idea of who they are. I think it's pretty hard to do that and be efficient with a bunch of freshmen that come in that you may not know all of them.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty confident we know most of the freshmen coming in because we're involved with that bantam. But there's always somebody that you don't know. So you're a couple days there. You got to have an inter squad scrimmage one night and meet the team night. I mean, there's a practice. It's just all of a sudden you're playing. So we try to be efficient. We try to move fast. We try to do a lot of our conditioning in the fall. and then having, you know, a practice that moves quickly, not a lot of rest to kind of keep their conditioning up. Because the last thing we want to do is we got a 2.5 hour practice and we have to run for 30 minutes now. Now Eric's going to sit over there and die because, you know, I used to run those guys into the ground, but they were not that talented, and so we had to be.
I was going to say that. Hey, I was going to interject and say the same. You knew that there was a lack of talent on our team, and just said, we're going to make sure these guys are conditioned. Back in my day, it was gassers. The width of the floor. Oh my gosh, we ran so many gassers.
Well, you guys also missed a lot of layups, so we had to do that. But
and free throws.
no, I think
like
that
this.
I mean the game's involved, and I've evolved a little bit. Just as to how things go, because, you know, we're playing 2 nights a week. They're practicing. We had kids last year playing heavy minutes. I think I thought my rotation was going to be a little deeper than it ended up being, for a variety of reasons. So, you know, kids are playing heavy minutes. So there's this balancing act of making sure that we've got to get what we need to get done. It's got to be good. You can't just, you know, do a drill and for the sake of doing the drill. It's got to have benefit. And so sometimes we have to stop it and do it again because we didn't do it right. So we try to move quickly. We try to move from drill to drill. We try to be efficient. But at the same time, we're trying to kind of weigh, all right, how many minutes did they play last night? What are we doing? You know, our Saturday morning practice is not a lot of running. It's more film. It's a lot of more skill, shoot. Sometimes it's just to get them back together, to say we're all back together and you know, we need to feel good. If you lose a heartbreaker the night before, sometimes you just need to get back together and get that out of your mind so that the next memory you have of all being together is good.
Yeah, there's a lot I want to come off of this. We've had talks offline of growing up in the West Jordan teams, at least the years I was there.
He's wrong, by the way. Wait till you hear this. He's
I
wrong.
never felt like they were supremely athletic, but they were so disciplined and they were going to do the right thing, and that's what made them hard. Now, before me and after me, they had some athletes that went D1. It was a different story. But my years, so to your point of like, you had to condition them and put in that discipline, I think is exactly what I experienced against you guys.
Well, they also didn't play as many games back then.
Yeah.
Now, you know, I mean, our high school season ends, and, you know, 2 weeks later, there are club teams out playing.
Yeah.
So those kids don't ever get a
Right.
break, and they play all the time. We just had a really heavy June. We played a lot of games in June. And now, you know, our top-end players are going to go play a whole bunch of games in July.
Yeah.
So we try to give them August off, you know, and get back into it. But you're trying to weigh that, like, how much are they playing? They play a ton.
And there's a level of empathy that you have there that I think is hard for some people to realize. Of like, oh, they're young, they're going to bounce back. It is what it is. But I remember my senior year, I was never a high flyer, but it was like, hey, I can barely dunk in season. Then when the season was over, my legs finally got a chance to rest. And it was like I was a completely different athlete because I got a chance to rest. And I think that that's an important thing to keep in mind.
You know, it's important. I mean, we were playing Isaiah 32 minutes a game.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to. I don't want to this year.
Yeah.
I would much rather play Isaiah 25 minutes a game, because he'll probably be just as productive in those 25 minutes as he is in 31 or 32, but he's going to be fresh. And we've noticed that throughout the summer. Like, if I can get him more of a break to where he's fresh, he's better to close games.
Mm-hmm.
As a coach, I sit back and say, okay, I told you about, you know, 4 or 5 games that we lost in single digits. Well, how much of that is on me because I didn't get on the break when we needed it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty hard on myself. I'm watching games going, okay, what do I need to be better at? That's the first thing I'm looking at watching is what can I be better at to give this team more of a chance to win? And I think that's some of that is making sure that we get them the rest so that you're not just dead tired. And Isaiah is the type of kid, he will never tell me he's tired. I'm like, do you need a break? He's always going to tell me no.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
But I know better, right? And so we've got to get him a break so that then he is fresh. And I think it's the difference between missing shots, making shots in the fourth quarter. Yeah. It's the difference between securing a loose ball and not securing a loose ball. Yeah. So it's something that we're very cognizant of and try to make sure that we put into our planning.
It's such a delicate balance, though, because that's the regret I have from my high school playing days is I wish I would have given more effort in a concerted amount of time and then sat and then come back in and give a more intense effort. But in the moment, I didn't want to come out. And so it's like, if I'm coming out, then the coach hates me or I'm doing something wrong or whatever else.
Players don't want to come out. Parents don't want them to come out, and then they come out of the game and it's immediately, well, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. You look tired, or you didn't set a screen, or you didn't dive for that loose ball, so you must be tired. You know, everyone wants their kid to be successful, and the players want to be successful, but sometimes you are going to be more successful by playing just a few less minutes because you're going to be more productive in less time. And that's what we're trying to get to this year. Now, will we be perfect? No. And there'll be games where you're going to come watch and you're going to come grab me after and say, Isaiah played 32 minutes. What were you doing? You know, sometimes it's a judgment call that you're trying to win. But I think in general, yeah, we're trying to give them more of a break to help them out. And so we're talking about games before we're talking about practice, but it all kind of goes together as to how much do we push them.
Which has been a big change in the load management of NBAs or colleges too, which I think high school is something to keep in mind, especially with off-season travel teams. Like there's a lot of games that these kids are putting in.
And for us, I think it came down to also like practice development of our younger players, right? So if our varsity guys are the only ones getting reps, and maybe more than that, let's just say like our top 5 or 6 get all the reps. Well, that's great. But what happens when 2 of those guys foul out? And now players 7 and 8 are having to play in crunch time, but they didn't get any reps in the defense that we're running or the specific way we're going to guard a ball screen that game or in our end of game situations that we practice. If they don't get reps in those, you know, now we've shot ourselves in the foot. And so, you know, what we found is, we got to get everybody reps. It helps develop those, whether they're, you know, maybe they're seniors that don't start, we need to get them reps, but our juniors and our sophomores need to get reps in practice as well.
We talking about practice, man.
And we're in here talking about practice.
Coach, what do you want to accomplish at Copper Hills? When it's all said and done, what do you want the legacy of Coach Allfrey to be here at Copper Hills?
So there's a couple of points to that, but I'm going to start you back with a history lesson. So, you know, this school opened in 95. Not a basketball powerhouse in any sort, right? They've got a state championship early on, but that team I think was a 500 team in region, and they just got hot at the right time. I think when Coach Blanchard got here, he changed the culture, and it took a couple of years, but then we had that stretch where we had the Preston Sanchez and the Stockton Shorts and the Trevin Allfreys and Stone Hutchings, where every year, you know, we were a top 4. Top 8 team in 6A. I think that's where this school belongs. Like our goal should be we're a top 8 team at minimum every year, right? And then maybe 1 year, one of those years you're in the top 4, and every 3, 4, 5, 6 years you're competing for a state championship. Now, obviously we want to compete for a state championship every year, but I think the reality is things change, right? So the baseline is that we should be a top 4, top 8 team every year. That's where we should be. But I think you add to that, I think that one of the things that's important to me is what do our kids learn? What are they taking away from this? Because when our season ends, only one team in each classification ends happy. Mm-hmm. Only one team ends with a win. Everybody else ends with a loss. And that's okay. We've talked about this, and like you lose in life, right? But what happens when you get knocked down? You have to learn to get back up. And so what I'm really hopeful is that our kids learn to fight through adversity. Our kids learn that it's never as bad as they think it is. And when you get knocked down, you're going to get back up, because that's what's going to matter for them the rest of their lives. So to be here with you is really special for me, to be able to look back and go, man, look at how Eric's life's turned out. Look at what he's done. Like, you know, because we choked up a little bit, right? To see these players that, and I'm going on almost 30 years of this. That's the thing that's really special, is to be able to see all of you who now have kids and are passing on your love for basketball to them and things like that. So that's important to me.
Is it cool that I still call you coach? Because anything else would not be right.
You don't have to call me coach.
It's the only thing I know. Yes.
There's a question here that I got from somebody else, and it's kind of like, what do you see as the key to building a positive, good high school program, for everybody involved? So what are the determining factors for that? Because to your point, there's one team that ends up the winner. So many people that I interact with that played high school basketball look back on it with regret, and if this would have gone this way, kind of the Napoleon Dynamite if coach would have just put me in concept. But a lot of people look back at high school and say that was a negative experience. What are things we can do to build up that culture to be where it's a positive experience, even if a state championship isn't the end?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that part of our problem as a society is that we don't live in the moment. We're always just so busy looking at what's next. So when it comes to high school basketball, it's players and parents going, well, when I get to college. Well, that may never happen, right? I know you know the statistic. It was in one of your shows. It's less than 6% of all high school players across the country play high school basketball. And that number isn't 6% even in every state, right? It's maybe 10% in a population center, and it may be 3% here. So, I think first and foremost, like, we need to be in the moment. Players, coaches, everything. Like, we need to enjoy each other. We need to enjoy the journey that we're on. No one has a perfect season. Not everyone wins a state championship. That's the goal. That's what we're striving for. But if you don't win a state championship, that doesn't mean that your season was a disaster or a failure, right? The only time you fail in life is when you just quit trying. So everything else that we do is about getting back up and playing again and just enjoying it. You look back and you remember the times you had with your teammates, right? I played on a West Jordan team years ago that very talented. I mean, we lost to one team 3 times. It's probably a state record. No one's ever lost to that same team 3 times in the same year. But when I think back about my experience, that's not really what I remember. What I remember is the times that I had with my buddies, right? Because of the hours and the hours and the hours that we put in that gym together. That's what I remember. I want these kids to look back and remember all the good times, which is one of the reasons we go to Florida. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we go play games, and it's a great bonding, but it's something that they remember. That's what they're going to remember when it's all said and done, hopefully, if we've done it right. And we had our year-end banquet, and I try to frame it back into perspective about all the great things that happened during the season, all the great things that we experienced, all the joy that we experienced, and try to just focus on that. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. I'm sure I screwed that up completely in the banquet. But the goal is to try to make sure that we're doing that we're talking to these kids about what really matters.
I love that perspective because, again, since my high school career, you take for granted having the lights on, having the cheerleaders, having the fans, having the parents, having referees and officials and coaches. You take it for granted in the moment, I think, a lot, and you miss it, and that pressure of performing after all that work.
And then for most kids, it's just over.
Yeah.
It's just over, and they don't know what to do, right? So that's where you've got to just really cherish it. Like, you're lucky to make a 6A basketball team, and even, like, again, 5A, 6A, there's no difference, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way the Activities Association wants to classify things. Even 4A, there's not much difference. Yeah. To make one of those basketball teams in this state, you've got to be a really good basketball player. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be proud of that. It's not easy to do to be here, but yeah, I just enjoy it. Just enjoy it with your brotherhood. I played college basketball. My boys, my oldest Trevin did. My son Jackson, he's got one more year in Wisconsin. But the difference between high school and college is that when you're in high school, it's everyone you grew up with. It's your buddies, like mostly your best friends. And you're going through this. And then you go to college, and it's a bunch of guys you probably have never met, you probably don't like. It's just different, right? They've pulled this team together. It's just not the same. And it can be a great experience, right? My son played at Utah Tech. They played at Arizona. They played at Gonzaga a couple of times. Like, he had a great experience. But it's not nearly as fun as when you're in high school. Yeah. And so, my advice to everyone, just enjoy the moment. Just enjoy what you're doing now.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about this upcoming season and a couple of philosophical things here. So you're losing some seniors, you've lost some size, and now you've got a smaller team. Do you have a coaching scheme or philosophy that you try to fit the players into, or is it starting with the players and then you're going to develop the scheme around that?
I mean, we have a basic philosophy, but we've got to adjust things to fit who we have. Yeah. We can't start posting up guys who are 6'1" if our philosophy is to post up. Yeah. So we're going to make the adjustments that we need to. I mean, we're not going to be big, but we're going to be fast. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be able to put lineups on the floor where there's 5 shooters. And that can cause problems. because we have guys that are really hard to guard one-on-one.
Yeah.
And so if you help, we're going to have open shooters. Now we have to be able to make those shots. So, we're going through, we spent quite a bit of time over the spring and summer trying different things, letting players kind of experiment on what they can do. And then my staff and I will spend the rest of the summer and fall kind of going, okay, here's how we're going to take advantage of the strengths that we have. And I think that's important. Like, what our job is to put the players in the best situation for them to be successful, and not just them, but our team. So sometimes that requires sacrifice from players. I may have to go to Isaiah and say, Isaiah, I need you to score 14 instead of 18, but I need to up your assists from 5 to 10 because that's what's best for the team. Now the great thing is Isaiah will do it, right? Because he wants to win. We have to put them in the right positions where they can be most successful and where we can utilize their strengths and sometimes hide their weaknesses. But we got to put them where we can utilize their strengths to help the team.
This is a bad question, but just go with me on this. And it was one that was submitted from coaches. But in your experience of teams that have done well, how much of it is the players that you have versus the coaching aspect of it? It's a bad question because it's both, but how do you weigh what you're able to do as a coach with the players that you're given?
So I think it's the majority of it's on the players, right? I mean, I'm trying to think who it was. Probably Calipari said it's about the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. It may not be him. I may have that wrong, but it was one of the famous coach. Now, you got to have players, right? I mean, you got to have dudes who can play. And I think that it comes down to, it's also not even having the best players, but for me, I think it's the most competitive, the guys who are going to play the hardest. Every night in this state, there is a team that beats somebody that talent-wise has no business beating them, but they played harder than them. They played harder than them. So yeah, coaching is important, and sometimes coaches got to get, sometimes I got to get out of my own way and just let them play. But coaches have to put their kids in the right positions, arm them with what they need to know, but then players have to make plays. We had open shot after open shot throughout the year, especially towards the end of the season. That shot was open. They have to make it. I can drop another play, but they have to make the shot. You don't win. I would say look at last year's Bingham team. Luke West, who was a phenomenal basketball player, breaks his hand, he's out. I think everybody expected Bingham to kind of take a step back. They might have gotten better. They were tough.
Yeah.
They were.
And it's because they played hard.
Yeah.
I don't think any of them cared how many points they scored. I just think it was just the next man up, and they just played harder than most of the teams. And they were tough. And
they had, again, I think having the bodies, right, too. If you have a team of 5'9" guys, that's hard to compete against a team that has 2, 6, 7 guys like a Harriman that you got to deal with that. So.
Yeah, now the hardest part with dealing with Harriman was when it really came down to it, Kel Barclay was just going to take us inside and get a rebound or get a bucket, or we're going to foul him or whatever. I mean, it's hard to guard when you don't have, the body to be able to guard him like that.
No, I love that. I love that the fact that you can put plays matter. Coaching schemes are very important. I'm not trying to downgrade that, but if you get an open shot, the players have to be able to deal with it, and then also
it's an open shot, it's a rebound, it's a loose ball. There's so many things that happen in a game that have to go right to be able to win a basketball game.
What do you want players and parents of those in the Copper Hills regime to know or to understand about the basketball program?
I think that what we want them to know, and I think the kids who are here know, is that they're loved. Like, we're here for a reason. It would be a lot easier for me to not have this job, but I wanted this job, and I waited for this job because I think it's an important job. So first and foremost, we're going to love your kids. We're going to push them to get better in all aspects of life, whether that's their grades, basketball, accountability, leadership. I mean, you can ask Isaiah, I'm always on him about, your voice has got to be louder. Your voice has got to be louder. You've got to, And these are things that, yes, that's going to help us probably win a basketball game. But I think that's going to help Isaiah later in life, right? To have more confidence to be able to speak up and use his voice in the situation that he needs to do that in. So, our goal is to make them better basketball players. Our goal is to make them men who can excel in the game of life. Because all sports is a microcosm of life, right? So you get to learn these lessons. You get to face adversity in this ecosystem where, it's not good. It doesn't feel good to lose, but there's no real consequences, right? If we lose a basketball game, no one's losing their house. No one's losing their job. It's just, we lost a basketball game. And so we're going to come back in and we're going to get back to work and we're going to work harder and we're going to try to win the next one, which is the exact skills they need to transfer to their life. Yeah. When things don't work out for you, then we keep going. We don't quit. And that's important to me. And that's the biggest thing I wanted my boys to learn, right? Everything else that happened with them is great. The fact that they are functioning adults who, are both going to graduate with advanced degrees, and that's the most proud I have of them. The rest of the records or whatever else happened, the fact they're college athletes is great, but who they are is the most important thing to me. And we want to kind of transfer that to everybody who comes to this program.
I love what you said there. I had a moment with my dad growing up where for years he was known as an athlete. And then there was a shift in his life where he became known as Eric's dad. And then now I was known for my little sphere of influence. And then now people come up and like, you're Jared's dad. And so I think that you're experiencing that too, of like, hey, you're Trevin's dad. Yeah. And you're a kid's dad. I think that's such an interesting shift from life of, okay, I think I've done a decent job of raising them at that point. And I could talk to you for hours about all of this stuff. I appreciate you taking this time to share your knowledge, and I hope give the people and the parents and the kids who are coming up into this Copper Hills program a glimpse as to what their life would look like, and that parents feel comfortable knowing that you're there looking out for their kids, not just on the basketball court, but through life.
Yeah, that's important, and we're excited. I mean, we had camp in here last week, down to the 3rd, 4th grade level. Like, there's some really talented players coming here. We're excited to have them here.
Well, we're excited for you. We're excited to track your team this next year, and good luck on year number 2 as in the head coach spot.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing this.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.